when we put our minds and our expertise and our experiences and everything together, and we work as a union and a team, really connecting with the world, which is what is happening in this room right now. I've spoke to so many people already, and we're from all over the world. So really be intentional today, not just to connect and hear the beautiful person behind the mission, but actually, what could you do today to really make a difference?
It is an incredible honor to be with you today at the Global Leaders Innovation Summit and Honors. This is more than a gathering. It is a convergence of visionaries committed to a bold future. A future where developing countries are essential and they become architects in global and regional markets. Let me begin by acknowledging the committed and vital work of the Global Council for Innovation and Leadership. Your commitment to driving innovation for sustainable growth, supporting developing countries, and empowering ethical and inclusive leadership is precisely what the world needs now. I am a believer that no matter who you are or where you live, every individual possesses unique talents and perspectives. We all have something to offer the world, and we can build a prosperous and more equitable global community. And in Prince George's County, we're not just talking about it, we're working on it every single day. In August 2023, under the leadership of Her Honorable Walla Blagay, please stand. Prince George's County went to Kenya, and Councilmember Blagay, the Honorable, led our delegation to Kenya. It was such a transformational experience for myself and for several of the businesses that joined us. We visited Nairobi and Mombasa, where our delegation, composed of small businesses, entrepreneurs, county officials, participated in over 40 business-to-business meetings organized through the Maryland Department of Commerce.
As we gather here today to mark this historical moment, unknowingly we have set the stage for what could become the world's largest gathering in a few years to come. But again, words alone will not transform our destiny. Action will. The theme, maximizing the benefit of participation in global and regional markets, integrating developing countries more closely into global value chain, is such an interesting theme. Well, as a Pan-Africanist, I want to start by saying that for too long, Africa's trade has been outward facing, exporting raw materials only to import finished goods at inflated prices. Meanwhile, intra-African trade languages are just 15 to 18%, compared to 60% in Europe or 50% in Asia. This is not just a gap, it is a glaring opportunity for Africa. Africa has traded more with distant partners than with her own neighbors. We have exported raw materials, raw potentials, and imported refined opportunity. But today, we stand at this threshold of a new era, an era where African nations must trade more with each other. However, if this promise is to be realized, we must confront ourselves with the limitations. We as leaders today, we must be committed to urgent priorities.
But my number one message to everyone here is Prince George's County is open for business. And what I wanted to just bring to your attention is that I am here to bridge the gap. And our council member, our chair, outlined it for you, but I'm going to even go in more detail of just how important Prince George's County is to Africa. I've said this before and I've been saying it many times. It is Africa's decade. This is our century. This is the century for Africa. And we have all of the resource, from the iron ore in Liberia, from every resource you can think about in Nigeria, from all of the plants and that people use in Kenya and more. Africa is rich. And what we have is that a thriving business that many have come from Africa looking for opportunities, come to Prince George's County, open their businesses, and they're providing support. When he talked about Philip does infrastructure not only in the United States, but he does it in Nigeria. I gotta say something about Ghana. Ghana has said, you know what, because people assume things when they see Africa, because the media has shown Africa as one big forest with birds and trees. But what they don't know is that we have industries all over Africa. We have cities that are more developed than even the city that we're sitting in right now, right there in Africa. And what Ghana did, I brought my business owners to a presentation. Ghana came and said, even the phone that you have, the cobalt in your phone, it starts right in Ghana, right in the soil in Ghana. So what they said to them is, here's our industries. Pick it. We want to work with you. Ghana is open for business. And after that meeting, everybody said, when are we going to Ghana? So what we've learned is that what we told our businesses, we're not asking our businesses to leave the United States now. No, we're not doing that. But what we're telling them is that there is opportunity beyond just United States. And if they are able to catch the opportunity in a place that is open for business, it only increases their generational wealth.
Well, I was told to speak on a topic called, my topic was going to talk about this whole issue of tariff and tax and the involvement of the diaspora and all of that. But I want to beg, I think we have really talked on this issue a lot. So I want to go off script, if you may permit me. So that let me also come from a perspective that I think is very significant to why we're gathered here today, because I see that majority of us here are actually diaspora. Now, we cannot talk about tariff, trade, and somebody approached me after the panel section and said, why don't we also talk about democracy and leadership? Because you can be blessed, you can have all the natural resources, you can have all the human capital development, but if you lack leadership, you will never be able to achieve anything. And I think one of the biggest problems we have in Africa, it's not lack of natural mineral resources, it's not lack of human capital development, it is lack of proper patriotic intellectual leadership. Who do you put on the table when you want to negotiate trade tariffs? Who are the people that have the knowledge and the patriotic zeal to be able to defend what God has given to us naturally? That's something we should be talking about. And the diaspora community is very significant to any evolving true leadership in Africa. Because let us look at it from the context of even the diaspora remittance. I come from Nigeria. The second largest income generating sector in Nigeria is diaspora remittance. In 2024, Africans from outside of Africa remitted over $100 billion into the African economy. And my country, Nigeria, remitted around 21 billion of that amount into Nigeria. We're not even talking about the fiscal sector that is also not within this regulation of calculation. Like some of you know what we do, I call somebody in Nigeria, I say, well, or I call somebody here, I said I need euros or I need pounds, and then the person says, okay, well, I have naira in Nigeria. You do naira to my account, and then I do euro to your account here. That is not even captured in this figure that I've just mentioned.
Another point I want to make is, let's go back in time a little bit, just to have a clearer picture of what I'm saying. Back in the Stone Age, man would pick up 2 stones and strike them together, and he'd ignite fire, right? I don't know if you guys are with me. What would it ignite? Water or hydrogen? It would ignite fire, I think. Now, that in itself was technology at the time. It was innovation at the time. It led to a greater reasoning. Oh, okay, now that we can do this, what else can we do? Agriculture, for example. The pre-colonial era or the medieval days, the ways of doing things where you would have trees planted, and the end product or the product was fruits and probably some leaves, right? Due to innovation, due to innovative ways of thinking, we found out that aside the products, you could also have byproducts. For example, the wood of the trees, the stem, could give you furniture. Another example, the barks of these trees could give you herbs, where we now make medicines. Another example, the barks of these trees could be harnessed to make paper, which we all write on today, pencils and things like that. But then it goes even further. How about the roots of these trees? As much as a tree grows on the surface of the earth, it is directly proportional to its growth deep within the soil.
We are advising to build a Hague to facilitate mobility between your country, but this turned out to be a mistake. It would have been wiser to develop the railway network, but we were on wrong tracks to build only the railway for the car and the truck. Africa holds immense potential for economical and social transformation by harnessing its capability and resources. Where is an analysis of the different dimensions of this transformation and the investment strategy that could implement it? One, we have to identify resource and capacity. Because Africa is rich in natural resources, including mineral gold, diamond, uranium, cobalt, bauxite, agricultural arable, land and biodiversity, allowing for diversity, food production, renewable energy, solar, wind, hydroelectric, geometric, human resources, a young and dynamic population ready to be trained to support various sectors. A long capital for growth. To transform these resources into sustainable growth, it is essential to unlock capital trunks, mobilize domestic resources. We must capitalize on our wealth before considering foreign investment. Africa is the only continent to sell millions of tons of gold without holding significant bank reserve. This must change. For 2 years, I have been proposing to several governments that they stop exporting raw mineral and instant process them to locally transformation. We also need a team of renowned African economists to advise your country on the creation of sovereign wealth fund, following the example of Norway. Is the small country, but this country is a powerful country today because she taking the time to build this new fund to support Norway. This is a good example. We have to creating a favorable investment climate, simplifying regulation, fighting corruption, and establishing tax incentive. We have to build a local financing development financial institution that support SME and startup, the new vision for Africa, particularly in innovative sectors such as sectors of the technology and services. We have also working to public sectors for the private partnership involving the private sector in the financing and management of infrastructure, energy, and education projects.
UK and US literally focus on what we refer to as launch, right? Which is just getting up into space. No one's really focusing on what we call the next mile, or we refer to as the next mile, which is what we call space habitats. Now, United Nations have agreed with us, and World Space Week this year have marked living in space. Next point, sorry. Yeah, and we've said, okay, fine, that Africa should take the lead in space habitats. So let everybody else run with launch, and we shouldn't compete with them. So we've embarked on a few programs around Africa with a few of the nations in the last 2 years. We've done a lot of work behind the scenes, and now we want to make sure that Africa plays a very vital role in the development of space habitats, from life sciences to setting up cultures, which is Africa's known for culture. You know, these are the things that we want to bring, because you're going to have a social system, a socio-economic system actually operational, because it's a city itself. So Africa needs to literally step up and say, okay, fine, we're going to take the lead in space habitats.
Tariff and taxes play a significant role in any country's economic, social, and even cultural development. Now, if you're trying to compete at the global level, you need to compete at an equal platform where you can bring what you have to the table, and then you can use it to negotiate what you think you need at the end of the day. So when you have increased tariff, that can also play a significant role in determining what sort of investment you bring into the country. Let me take, for instance, my country, Nigeria. If we want to compete globally on agriculture, for instance, we need to also be given that equal opportunity to have the window with which we can bring in the technical capacity, and then at the same time use what we have in terms of low income, not paying workers in the same way the global north will pay their workers. So we need to have that sort of advantage in dealing with that. So once there's increase in tariff and increase in taxes, that will definitely discourage investors from coming into your country.
What I will say is that this is the time that I do want the African Union to activate and get together, because what we've seen, especially with African countries, is that the countries have been raped by those who are come outside of the country. They will hold hostage. You know, we have many of our African countries that are in debt to many of the World Bank and all of these things, which are holding their natural assets and the natural resources, and then you have companies coming in taking those natural resources. What we would say is that I know people are watching Burkina Faso and many of the leader there and what he's doing, and what we would remind people, this is a time the African Union can take that moment to say no more raping of the countries. At this point, if you want to implement tariffs against African countries, then we are going to remove your companies from our country, and we are going to take back our natural resources. And if you want to get our natural resources, then you've got to pay. Let's negotiate, because unfortunately African countries cannot owe so much debt to all of these various entities, World Bank and all, then have those that are outside of the country coming in, taking their resources, and then have those who are the global leaders in the country that are the home of those taking their resources slap tariffs on them. We can't take that all at once. So I will say we do encourage our African Union to get together and push back. I would say for many those in the United States, we are very frustrated.
I mean, holding countries on ransom, forcing to push the tariffs on certain countries which are developing and all that. So it is not advisable on a global scale. And this is what is not good for the whole global economy, that one country is putting, like America, decided to push boundaries with tariffs for all the other countries, and all of a sudden, because they have the mandate globally, being US dollars and cashing all over the world as a only currency, so they try to push the countries and put them on like a ransom. Either you do it or you've been put on a trouble. So this is something which is not acceptable from anyone in the world. If someone does that, it's not the right way. And you cannot talk about then bringing people on the same platform and and deciding on things. So this is the point which I want.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much. We live now in the deconstruction of the world. The new president in the USA make everything to change the world. We built this world many times, many years, and now the time is the time of the deconstruction. The good news is the Africa is the best continent. The Africa is not changed. The Africa is the good opportunity for Africa, the good opportunity for Africa. And really is all opportunities in the world is in Africa. Every decision from outside, from USA, from Canada, from France, from UK, is the decision for this side, is not decision for Africa. Africa is a real country for the opportunity. We have to take the time to build the new way for Africa, to build the African resistance, and we have to take the time to collaborate together. Because the Africa is an opportunity for the world and opportunity for Africa.
When you talk about access to clean energy and the access to energy, especially in rural communities, it is the gap for education. It's the gap for healthcare. So when you talk about success of women, not just in the industry of clean energy, you have to talk about educating women in the basics. So if you have running electricity and you're able to study in the evening, if we're talking about having safe clinics where women can give birth, when you talk about the issues with Black maternal health across so many countries and globally, a concern. So the foundation of just having a healthy life is access to clean, renewable energy. One of the issues and concerns we see is the cost. We know that we have to invest in this infrastructure. We also have a disconnect in the grid. So one of the issues we have right now, I'm working with my family on this issue about bringing electricity to a village where my father's from.
Well, I think one thing that we have to look at, and this is going to be quite interesting, when I did some research on this and I looked at the rural communities and especially the tribes that we're seeing in Africa, for example, that have lasted for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, what we're seeing there is a balance. And it's a balance of roles. It's women having their sort of strong standing in the community, doing what they need to do, and then the gentlemen doing the same. And I think that balance is something that we're missing at the moment. And so this is really about giving women as well the opportunity by integrating more infrastructure for them, by creating funding to educate women and so on, to actually lead. And this is taking them from a position of aid, of a charitable recipient, in essence, to, hey, we trust you to lead here. We trust you to do something that is of value. We trust you to contribute. And so for that, the more diversity we can bring into the teams and the more doors we can open in that direction, the better we're going to see the performance of any company or any venture that we have in this country.
I just wanted to say that it's so important that we integrate women when we're thinking about energy projects. Why am I saying this? Because women are disproportionately affected when it comes to the impacts of climate change. You have millions of women who are being refugees because of climate change. Women are often excluded. When you think about the fact that in certain countries, they would lack property rights, so they won't have collateral to get loans for their businesses, for example. Women are often having to do so much unpaid domestic labour. So here in the room we have Action Through Enterprise. We've got Michelle from Action Through Enterprise. And I've learnt a lot about her charity. And one of the things that their charity does is that they provide a school feeding programme so that when their kids go to school, they can eat food at school instead of going home. If that programme wasn't there, children have to go home for lunch and then go back to school. If they go home for lunch, who's going to give them the food? The mother. And that means that mother cannot then go out and be an entrepreneur or to get involved in these energy sector jobs. So we really need to include women in the story. They are disproportionately affected. And if we start to industrialize without including them, they're going to be left even further behind. And I said earlier that I'm involved in a lot of charity work. And when I go to orphanages, when I go to schools, when I go to all the different places, guess who's the first person I'll speak to? It's probably a woman. They are investing in the communities. So it's so important that we bring them along on the journey. And in most countries, women would be, take up probably 50% of the population. So why would we leave them out? It's such a wasted opportunity. We need to bring them into the conversation. We need to allow them to be speaking in public places, sharing their views. We need to allow them to be trained. We need people to be installing solar panels across the world. Why not involve women? We can create jobs. We can increase household income. We can improve the economy by bringing women into the conversation. Look at all the women on this stage here. Why are we depriving women around the world from being able to contribute in the energy sector? So I think it's so important to bring women.
I mean, for us to truly deliver inclusive growth, I think global trade policies should stop treating energy, gender, health, and education as siloed issues. They must instead try and integrate these issues into trade frameworks as core enablers of economic participation. One approach to do that is to embed social and environmental standards into trade agreements, making energy access and gender equity not optional but a prerequisite. For example, the bilateral and multilateral trade deals, such as the African Continental Free Trade Area, can include binding clauses that promote infrastructure investment for decentralized renewable energy sources in rural areas. I'll tell you what, Jay, these investments, if tied to trade incentives, or if tied to green tariff reductions, they can drastically improve women's access to clean energy, reducing time spent on collecting firewood, and therefore enabling engagement in education, not just in education, but also in micro-enterprise. For example, consider the Nepal, where solar microgrids are being deployed in remote areas with women's cooperatives. These women's cooperatives are the ones taking the lead in managing the distribution and maintenance of these microgrids. So if global trade policies could support such localized energy ecosystems, they could clearly catalyze health and education outcomes.
And I don't want us to leave without mentioning that this event is going to be an annual event, and we're going to meet next year in Africa. But where we're going to meet in Africa is still an ongoing conversation. We would like your contribution to say where in Africa you'd like us to go to. West Africa, East Africa, we want your opinion to count, not just because we are the organizer or the governing council to say this is where we want to go. Your opinion counts. So if you want to take a quick vote now, if you want us to go to East Africa, can we have your answer for next year, please? East Africa. I'm not saying any African country, just saying East Africa. West Africa? Okay. Okay. North Africa? Okay, one. South Africa? I think West Africa have it. So we'll see where we go from here. Thank you very much.
My name is George Pinto. I'm the CEO of JRP International Construction.
I'm Renato Goodfellow. I'm GCIL Network, and it was a pleasure to be at this event today to see the realization of the opportunity of Africa is here now, and now together we can network to make it real.
Hi, my name is Edward Burrows. I'm the chair of the Prince George's County Council. We represent 1 million people in the state of Maryland back in the United States of America.
Hi everybody, my name is Joel Singh. I'm the founder and the head of the GEC Space Program. And you're probably wondering what we want to do with Africa. And I think it's quite simple. We believe Africa has a lot of value to add to the space technology, space industry, and more specifically around space habitats.
Hi, my name is Oluwatobi Aigbogun. I am the Chief Executive Officer for the Global Impact Foundation, and I'm here at the Global Leaders Innovators Summit representing Her Excellency, the amiable First Lady of Kwara State, Ambassador Professor Olufolake Abdulrazak.